When you look at those three Instagram profiles, they are so visually different from each other, yet they all fit great within the Instagram UI. If there is one thing that Instagram does extremely well in their UX, is that they let the content shine. And as designers, we are often getting caught up in, let's make this element stand out a little bit more, or maybe let's use brand color to make the thing a little bit more shiny. Not here. Instagram, if you were to define their visual language, it would probably be invisible. And if you're a designer, you know that it is a really hard thing to do. And as a creator on Instagram, it basically feels to you like you're receiving a blank canvas that you can do anything with. There are only black text, black icons, some neutral backgrounds, and maybe gray buttons. And the bottom navigation is also very subtle. And all this continues also to the main feed and the feed of Reels. So the only really colorful and branded elements on Instagram are the stories, so the indicator of a new story. And I think it's genius because the color here indicates something temporary and something interesting you want to click on. And because they use color only in this one place, they don't desensitize people to this color. So it actually stands out that much more. And what we can learn here is, of course, that less is more, but also that the content, especially user-generated content, should stand out the most in the application. Even if it's not photos or videos, it also applies to other applications like Excel, for example, or Notion for written content. All of them remain relatively neutral in comparison to the content that users are creating. And this is the recipe for success because they understood that their UI is only a tool for a user in their workflow, not the main focus. Welcome to UX Design Like Instagram. It is a second episode of UX Design Like series that we have on this channel. Last time we talked about Apple, so if you want to check it out, it will be here in the card. And today we're talking Instagram. Instagram has 2 billion with a B monthly active users. On Earth, where we have 8 billion people, it is quite impressive. So today we are going to analyze their UX and see why people get so hooked on all the stories, double tapping to like and all the reels, and see if we can implement anything in our own designs to make them almost as engaging. Another thing that Instagram adopted extremely well in their app are gestures. All the swipe up to reply to a story, swipe to the side to go to the profile from the reels, double tap to like the picture, or swipe to go to your messages. There are tons of them. I am always surprised how people learn those and adapt them because there are no clear tutorials there. Maybe at the beginning when you just join the app there is something, but overall there is no tutorial on every corner just to explain the gestures. It seems like people either learn them organically because they just swipe by mistake and then something happens, or maybe they assume that there are gestures and they are trying it out, or maybe learn from each other. It has always been really surprising to me and a mystery how people discover those, even how I discovered those, because I don't remember the time when I was like, oh, I learned a gesture on Instagram, yet I know basically all of them. And it is a really bold move to add that many gestures to your app, because usually when I work on a mobile application and I propose some gestures for the design, I encounter some doubts regarding will people know it, will people learn it for sure, especially for people who are not really familiar with designing for mobile apps. They are more familiar with like the desktop design flows. They have a lot of doubts regarding the adoption, but it turns out that if you're using those universal gestures, or in general, if you're using gestures in your app, for some reason it works. Instagram, of course, capitalizes on some well-known gestures, but also they create their own, and they're with the size of the audience that they have and the adoption that they have, they are basically changing the culture and maybe the expectations even for other apps that people are using. Because, for example, double tap to like, I think they were first to do it as far as I remember, and I think that it's already like in the culture, double tapping, and even people talk about it. So that's how much impact you can have. So the lesson here is don't be afraid to introduce gestures in your designs, because even if they don't feel like they are natural, maybe you can add a quick tutorial for more unusual ones, but people will discover and will adopt them, especially that most of us are power users of our phones. We spend more time with our phones than we spend with our children. So it becomes an expectation, not a nice to have gestures in the applications. And staying on this topic, Instagram focuses mainly on mobile experience. Only, I think, 2% of users open Instagram on desktop, so it's definitely justified that they focus on mobile. And they're doing a great job because of the singular focus that they have. Of course, you can open it on desktop and it is usable. I think that it is optimized now way better than it used to be a couple years ago. But still, it is not like a desktop-first experience, definitely. It is definitely a mobile experience translated into desktop. Many companies have this obsession about making their products accessible on every platform, like on mobile, on tablet, on desktop, on a fridge, in a bathtub, on a calculator, like wherever you want to have it, you're gonna have it. And in some cases, it makes total sense and they should go for it. But in some cases, it just ends up in a poor experience on a different platform. So maybe it is something to consider when you're creating a project. For example, it makes total sense to have Notion accessible on your phone, on your tablet, on your desktop, because you may want to write something down on the go and then maybe work on it later on your computer when you have a little bit more time. But on the opposite side of the spectrum, Procreate, for example, so the program for graphic design, they focus mainly on tablet users, and it makes total sense. They are killing it to the extent that Adobe had to adapt, and actually to compete with them, they had to translate their apps better into tablets. And now they're doing a better job, but for a long, long time, it was actually a problem. And the lesson learned is that it's okay to sometimes focus only on one platform. It really depends on your use case and on your resources actually as well. It's better to do one thing great than multiple things in a mediocre manner, let's say. And later on, you can, of course, add those other platforms when users want it. Basically, the idea is to meet your users where they are. So for example, if people mostly use Instagram on their mobile phones, there is no sense for them to invest hugely into desktop experience anyways. Another thing I've noticed is that Instagram doesn't ask their users to leave their app for basically anything. You can take a photo, start a live, edit a photo, take a video, edit a video, everything, add a music, everything inside of the app. And it forced Instagram to become not only a social media platform, but also the editing software and the camera app company. But that's the strategy. It seems obvious now, but it wasn't obvious from the very beginning. And at the beginning of Instagram, one of the most important selling points was that the pictures that you published there, they just looked really good because of the filters that they offered. And it was really simple to edit those photos. And it was in the times where not all of the cameras were sharper than reality, and they made you look pretty, like Samsung airbrush effect on your skin. And I bet it required a lot of work on Instagram's part to establish those UX patterns for mobile for editing videos and editing photos. Because imagine adding all of the features that Premiere Pro has, so all of those panels that you can see here. And those are basic panels. Those are not deep work, deep editing panels, just basic stuff that you need to edit a video into a mobile experience. Super challenging, but they established those patterns and they work really well. And surprisingly, even people who are not video editors, they are not specialists, they really know how to use it. So they did an excellent job, it seems like. What we can take away from this is don't ask users to leave your app for anything. Don't ask them to go and convert data into another profile somewhere else, or don't ask them to edit their photos or edit their videos or edit their text somewhere else. Just, it's the best if they can put everything together in your app, do everything in your app. For example, Instagram knew that if they want people to be sharing photos and videos, especially people who are not specialists, they better have editing software inside of the application, and it better be good and intuitive. And on this note, Instagram knows exactly what they want us to do: create and consume content, and they remove all the obstacles so we can do it more and more and more because it benefits them as a business. Want to add a story or start a live? One click. Want to add a reel? Here are some templates, and we've even created a reel for you from your past content if you would like to share this. Barrier to entry is so low on Instagram. First, you share a simple photo, then you create a reel from a template, then you edit it a little bit more, then you learn some more advanced editing in their application, and before you know it, you become a content creator who shares interesting content for their app that benefits their app mainly. It's just genius. Lesson to apply here is to identify what your users do that benefits them and you as a company, and support those flows as much as you can. So for example, if you have a fitness app for recording your workouts, how much weight you've added and how many repetitions you had, and this benefits users because the longer they record their workouts, the better data and improvements they can see, and you as a company because they keep paying, and also you have a lot of data to analyze potentially. Then you need to unblock this workflow. So if they, for example, keep forgetting to add, or there's some difficulty in adding those workflows, or something doesn't work quite well in the app, invest relentlessly into those workflows until they are perfect, because that will actually benefit you in the long run. And my last point, Instagram is obsessed with consistency. Consistency of looks, of patterns, of the UI, of the gestures, everything. Let's come back for a moment to the news story outline indicator. Of course, it is visible at the very top of the application in this main area, but it is also visible in your profile, in your feed, in your Reels feed, in search, in comments, in your messages even. It is basically wherever the avatar is, there will be an indicator. And this pattern became so deeply rooted across users of multiple social media platforms that even people on LinkedIn started adding those fake outlines to their avatars, so that people, out of curiosity, they want to click on it because they think there is some kind of story there where there is nothing really. So see how consistency and establishing patterns with a big enough audience can really influence the culture and the life of your users. It is really, really worth it. If you enjoyed this video, you may also like the analysis of Apple UX that I did some time ago. And let me know in the comments what you like Instagram for and what other companies would you like me to analyze. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.